All right, joining us now. By the way, I want to say it was a couple of years ago. David Law gives me a call, and he's like, you got to check out this guy that I think is a future superstar. And I listen, and I'm like, whatever you got to do to get him in your network, you got to do it. Q Myers now, part of the Locked On Raiders and ESPN Las Vegas, joining us now. Q, how are you, man?
Hey, Q.
Fantastic. How you guys doing? Appreciate you having me on the show.
You bet.
All right, so I don't know what the Vegas line on over-under on Raiders games are. I set it at 6.5. Where would you go on that?
Yeah, I mean, it's around there, 6.5, 7.5. I think that this is a team that should win around 8, maybe 9. That doubles what they did last year, winning 4. I think that's reasonable expectations for a team year one with head coach Pete Carroll, and there's obviously question marks on this team, but there's a lot of positivity, there's a lot of good energy, there's a lot of competition going on. That's what Pete Carroll talks about. So I feel like that they have to be better than they were last year. So I've been comfortable with about 8 to 9 wins.
This is a hell of a draft for them. It wasn't a Q. I mean, we were just talking about Jackson Powers Johnson, but you get your running back in Genty. You're able to add a couple of receiving threats, one in Besh, who I was a big fan of. I call games in the Big 12, and I'm a big fan of that guy. It feels like this was kind of a home run draft. We'll see what Geno could do, but it feels like a really good draft.
Well, yeah, they had a good draft. I mean, JPJ, he goes back to last year. I mean, he was a second-round pick last year with following Brock Bowers. So they had a really good 1-2 punch with Bowers and then Jackson Powers Johnson. This year they get Ashton Genty, Jack Besh, who you just mentioned. That was the 1-2 punch there. I think there's a lot of excitement about this Raiders draft class and what they could possibly be this year. You know, they're going to need a lot of young guys to step up and play at a high level, and you know that's difficult to all of a sudden step into the NFL and immediately click. But they have a couple guys that can do it, right? And obviously Bowers did it last year. They're expecting Genty to do it this year. Pete Carroll wants to run the ball. Chip Kelly wants to run the ball. There's a lot of, like I said, excitement about what this team could be. The thing is that they're still trying to put it all together. Like Jackson's been working with the 1s and the 2s at the center position, where last year he started out at the left guard and then finally transitioned to the center. So they're still trying to figure out what pieces all mixed together.
So when you get a guy like Ashton Genty, and I saw him a lot last year doing Mountain West Conference games, so I saw a lot of Ashton Genty. When you draft a stud like that, obviously he's going to be your bell cow, but do they slowly ramp him up, you know, or does he immediately get thrown to the wolves and say, guess what, you're getting 25, 27 carries a game?
Yeah, I think he's getting thrown to the wolves. I mean, really, I think this offense is going to be Ashton Genty and Brock Bowers. I think that's what you're going to see a whole heavy dose of. And look, the Raiders last year were 32nd across the board in running. Every category that had to do with rushing the ball, they were 32nd. They were awful. They couldn't do it. So they go and get a guy in Ashton Genty who can do it. As you mentioned, saw him a lot in the Mountain West. I did as well. He can do it at a high level. So excited about him. This offensive line's got to come together to open up holes for him. But he's also a guy that, you know, we like to call a BYOB, right? A bring your own blocker, too. I mean, you know what I mean? He's like that guy, right? So I think that he'll be really good. You'll see a lot of him. You know, they also have Raheem Mostert, who's a touchdown machine. He's, you know, as long as he's healthy, he's going to be a player. And then they got Sincere McCormick and Zamir White. And I don't think both guys make the roster. It's going to be either or. The question is who's going to be there. But to answer your question, man, Ashton Genty is going to get the full deal workload. You'll see him catch passes out of the backfield. You may even see him in special teams return some punts.
Speaking of this draft, you draft Tonka Hemingway, and can't wait to see what he can do out of South Carolina. But more importantly, you bring in a piece from New York in a former University of Utah superstar in Leki Fotu. Talk about that move, moving him to the interior, and what's Vegas' expectations out of Leki?
I think we lost Q. We'll try to get him back on here. There we go. Now we got you.
Yeah,
we got you.
Were you able to hear the question there, Q?
I heard you say something about Tonka Hemingway, and then I must have hit some weird part on this road. Sorry about that.
No problem. So you get Tonka Hemingway in the draft. I want to get some of your thoughts on him. But more importantly, you bring Leki Fotu, a University of Utah superstar, in from New York. What are Vegas' expectations out of Leki Fotu, and just your thoughts on Tonka as a draft pick?
Well, I think that the defensive tackle room, all of a sudden, there's a lot more attention on it, right? I mean, you got Christian Wilkins, who they just released. He was your big-ticket free agent a year ago, and they don't have him now. So now guys like Fotu, guys like Tonka Hemingway, guys like J.J. Pegues, they have to all step up. Jonah Laulu, he's going to have to step up. Like Adam Butler, all these different guys have to step up because now you have a question, who's going to be the main dog or the main guys in that defensive tackle room. So, Fotu, the good thing about him, he's a 6-year vet, so he at least knows the ropes. It's not like you're expecting a rookie to go in there and step up his game immediately and fill that void, and so that gives me a little bit more confidence that at least they know what to expect and they're going to get a heavy rotation of all those guys. I think the defensive tackle room now has become one that we're really paying attention to see who emerges as the leaders there, and I think that they're going to keep a lot of them. It's over, preseason's over. I think you see, 7 or 8 of those guys probably kept on the roster because they're going to need that rotation to fill in for Christian Wilkins, who's no longer with the team.
Describe to me what a good season for Geno Smith looks like, given realistic expectations.
Well, yeah, he's got to have. I mean, last year he threw for 4,000 yards, which is great, but he only had like 21 touchdowns and I think 15 interceptions. And he took 50 sacks. That can't happen. Ooh. He's got to be closer to 30 touchdowns. He's got to be under 10 interceptions, and he can't take 50 sacks. If he does, the season's going to go all bad for the Raiders. So for them to have a successful season, he's got to be efficient. Even if he's not 4,000-yard passer, that's fine. But the touchdowns have to be better, interceptions have to be less, and he's got to get the ball out. He can't be that guy. He turned the ball over a lot as well in the red zone. That was the big issue as well in Seattle. A lot of turnovers in the red zone, and we've seen early in training camp. We've seen him get picked a couple times in the red zone. So that can't happen. That's the money area. Like you've got to score. Touchdowns preferred, but you've got to score something. You can't turn the ball over. And so he's got to protect the ball. I think that he's going to be benefited by having a healthy run game with Ashton Jeanty. I think he'll be benefited because he has Brock Bowers, who's great. He's got other weapons like Jacoby Myers and Big Mike, Michael Mayer. Dante Thornton Jr. is a guy that's a speedster. Trey Tucker, same thing. So I think he's got some good weapons, and Chip Kelly, his offensive coordinator, is going to help. But he's got to protect the ball at all costs.
All right, Q. Pete Carroll, yes or no?
Yes, absolutely. And it's funny, he's a guy that when they first started floating the idea if he could be in line to be the Raiders head coach, I was like, it's Pete Carroll. He's a little older. Yeah, I know he had success in Seattle, but, they kind of pushed him to the side for a reason. And so I wasn't really excited about that hiring, but now that I got to know him, now that he's in the building, he's showing the competition, the players, more importantly, are showing how much they believe in him and how excited they are and what they're willing to do to go out there and put their best foot forward. And the fact is, like Antonio Pierce last year, I think he had a chance to be a good coach. He just didn't know how to do it, right? He knew what he wanted. He didn't know how to do it. Pete Carroll knows what he wants, and he's got the track record and the history to know how to do it as well. So that to me, there's a proof of concept there, and that's what he's doing every day when he's out there. So he's giving Raider Nation a feel that this team could win a lot of games. But as you guys know, they play AFC West, so it's a very difficult division. All 3 teams, other than the Raiders, were in the playoffs last year. So who takes a step back, if anybody? So that's going to be the difficult part. But they should be a lot better. Pete Carroll's a really good head coach. I think that he's laying a good foundation for this team, and whenever he decides to hang it up, this team should be in position to move forward with whoever the next head coach is and already have a really good foundation in place. We'll see if it happens, but that's the theory.
So, Q, you just led into my next question there because you had 3 teams out of the AFC West go to the playoffs. If the Raiders are an 8 or 9 win team, that means that they would be on the cusp of a wild card. So who do you think out of the division, and I'm assuming between the Chargers and the Broncos, do you think they can overtake?
Well, that's the big question, and that's what I'm remaining to see. Who's going to take that step? Initially, I'll just look and say the Chargers, but then you have Jim Harbaugh, right? And he's a guy that's got a track record of having a lot of success, especially in early years with teams. So, but I'm interested to see if the Chargers defense is going to be as good as it was last year. Does it stay that level? Does it take a step back? And does Justin Herbert take a next step? He's the one guy I question, and people get mad at me for questioning him, but he hasn't proven it. He's a really good quarterback. He's got a ton of talent. We know that. But he hasn't won the big games, and they haven't had any success in the playoffs. He's 3-18 against playoff caliber teams. So as much as he's super talented, he hasn't won the games that he needs to, and a lot of quarterbacks get criticized for that. Herbert seems to kind of skate through the criticism, maybe because he's a Charger, and I don't know, maybe because they're not the biggest name in L.A. I don't know why. I wonder that all the time. But I want to see more from him because I know he's got the talent. I've seen it up close and personal. He just hasn't got it done in the big games.
How much does Tom Brady's ownership and participation really mean to the wins and losses from what you've observed, Q?
I don't think it means anything for the wins and losses. I think it means a lot for the credibility of the team and the organization. A team that a lot of people look at and say, oh, that's just the Raiders. Raiders being the Raiders. Raiders are a joke, this, that, and the other. I think Tom Brady, who has a commitment to excellence, who has an excellent career, right? He's obviously a Hall of Famer. He's that guy, the greatest of all time, all the Super Bowl wins. He's not going to put his name on something that's mediocre. Like, we know that. So he stands for something. That gives the opportunity for the organization to stand for something. That, to me, is the biggest factor in Tom Brady and his ownership, is that now you have a guy in place that, you know, expects excellence and probably will do anything it takes to make sure that this organization becomes excellent again. Commitment to excellence, just win, baby. That's like a slogan on a T-shirt now. That's what people say. That's what I say at the end of the podcast. Just win, baby. But it hasn't meant anything in a very, very long time. His task is to get commitment to excellence and just win, baby, to actually mean something.
Q, we appreciate it, man. Thanks for hanging out with us. Great job on the Locked On Raiders podcast, as well as ESPN Las Vegas. And look, I've spent some time working for David. I've worked around David. I know he's a pain in the butt, but great job impressing him because he's not an easy guy to hang out with. I'm kidding, by the way.
Yeah, that's my guy, man. That's my guy. I definitely appreciate y'all. Thanks for having me.
You got it. There he is, Q Myers, ESPN Las Vegas, Locked On Raiders, right here on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.